Hola, amiga, and welcome to the Latina Leadership Podcast, the podcast by Latinas for all women. Get ready because today's conversation is really special.
Hola, amigas, and welcome to another episode of the Latina Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Diaz, and welcome to season 13. I have a wonderful guest with me, Rocío López. Thank you for coming on. Do you mind telling our audience what you do, who you are, and what you do?
I am Rocío López. I'm from Mount Vernon, Washington, Skagit County. I am a disability activist locally and statewide. I try to do it as much as I can. So just a disability activist.
I love that. And, I saw your information going a little in depth. You were born and raised in Skagit County, a rural community. So what was it like growing up there as a Latina? And when did you first realize that your voice mattered?
Growing up as a Latina here, it was because I have a disability. I had to. The doctors told my parents to only teach me one language because they didn't know how severe my disability was. So I learned only English for that reason. We also went to an English speaking school, and there weren't a lot of Latinos that were going to school with me. So I was around, a lot of, basically white students, which is what we grew up. And it wasn't until high school that, whoa, Latinos are there. Like, wow, So I was always kind of an outcast just by being Latina. And, but it was really hard for me because I didn't speak Spanish. But it was interesting to go to school with other Latinos when I got to high school. That was a whole other experience. So that's what it was pretty much like. But it was also really difficult having a physical and developmental disability. So that part was what's really difficult because I didn't get to be a kid per se. We were worried about children's, about physical therapy, everyday things that I had to work with and deal with, as a child having a disability.
Yeah, and I can imagine that kind of got you, going for disability rights currently what you're doing right now,
Right.
and advocating for people who are in your same situation as well. So how tell me about that process of what started it and what got you into it?
Well, my mom died in 2016, and I had found out that she had told me a few years before that she had been looking for organizations that were disability community. And she had been researching stem cell research to see if there was any cure or what's going on medically. And so I had applied to Disability Rights Washington as a volunteer. And then my mom died in 2016, and they called me in 2017 and they wanted an interview. So finally, I actually did something. I finally was able to get somewhere. But at the same time, it was based in Seattle. So that's the hard part because a lot of these orgs are based in Seattle. And because Skagit's one of the most smallest counties, we don't get a lot of attention. So that's really when it started to really kick off, is when my mom died. But she had told me all my life that I was an activist. So I just didn't realize it, that I was being an activist. Being a kid, you just get told, doctors and things like that.
No, and I'm glad you were able to make her wish come true by becoming an advocate as you are right now.
Yes.
And you mentioned in your background you helped pass the Nothing About Us Without Us Act into law. Can you walk us through what that process looked like and what the bill means for the disability community?
Oh my goodness. So Disability Rights Washington, because they have the lawyers and they have, the whole all the people to do the work as far as, the bill, creating it, forming it. Well, there was like 20 other activists who have been involved with Disability Rights Washington. Now, mind you, all of the members who are board members who are disability advocates, mental health, they're all disabled. They all have disabilities of some sort.
Yeah.
So we decided that we thought we needed a bill to have our own place at the table. And which means we wanted a spot when there was workshops, when there was roundtables discussing issues about disabilities. It's like,
Yeah.
why do we have to have a law to say we need to have a spot at the table instead of just having able-bodied people taking those places? So that's pretty much what the bill was about. Was we wanted the group, whoever it is, to pay for our travel and expenses, and then just having that place, because we're tired of not having the appropriate representation, because able-bodied people don't know what it's like to have a disability. So because of that, it wouldn't be a very well represented. So that's pretty much what it came down to. Took 4 years, 2 sessions.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 sessions. So finally did. And oh my goodness, I think more disability activists cried and cried because they were so happy. It took a lot of work, and the disability rights did the meat and potatoes, and they just filled us in. And then, we put our 2 cents in, and we told them, we want this change, we want this changed, and we want that changed. So they really did it by what we wanted and not what necessarily what they wanted. It was all about the leadership came from the disability activists.
No, and I love that everybody involved, had a disability, because you have to have the people who are wanting to make the changes to be the ones who are going to be affected by the changes.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's sad that we have to have a law just to say that we have a place at the table. Like, that shouldn't even be a question.
Yeah, and what I'm wondering right now is, like, to put, because I'm pretty sure there's a mix of able-bodied and people with disabilities watching this podcast.
Right.
How would you put it perspective for people who are able-bodied to understand, like, the type of, like, what you're having to fight for?
I think what I'm starting to do is taking people who don't have disabilities to these meetings, and to include them in discussions, just letting them see and just listen. Like, I'm taking a friend of mine who is able-bodied, and she's going to go with me to Washington, D.C. to help me, because even though I am mobile, I tend to walk too fast sometimes. And so I trip. So, and sometimes because it affects my right side, my muscles on my right side are not strong. So she's going to go and help me do that type of stuff. But I think for able-bodied people who don't have a physical or developmental disability, I think just listening and watching and asking questions before assuming. Because for some people who are in wheelchairs, people sometimes will grab, but that's a little dangerous for that person because they're not asking for the help. They're just doing it, and that puts them in a dangerous situation. So just involving them in our discussions, and just letting them listen and not participate, because I think that's really what we need people to do, is just listen, and then tell us what they learn, or if they have questions, or however they choose.
Yeah, no, and we've been seeing a lot of disability representation come up in the recent 5 years. What have your thoughts been about that? Or do you see it progressing more where, there's going to be more attention and more progression in, disability rights?
I think it's just now kicking off because of the political climate, and the administration. And so now it's becoming more important and more necessary, and it's becoming brought to the table now, because everything's going to be affecting Medicaid and Medicare, and then it's also by state. So because I live in a blue state, that really brings the light. And they have little old me in this rural county that's like, hey, I'm here. So, and then finally getting that acknowledgement, that recognition, and just awareness. This is our disability activist. What can we do? What does she need? And really, what I need is more people to participate, people who are disabled, who have developmental disabilities, to contact Disability Rights Washington, because people from Skagit don't contact them. So if you don't have the people, what are you gonna do? It looks like they don't need help. But I think it's just becoming more and more prevalent as the administration we have, and the fact that Medicare and Medicaid has become more of an issue.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that sentiment. And also, I feel like also sometimes it is a bit harder with our community, the Latino community specifically, that it's hard for
Yeah,
us to ask for help, which seems to be the common consensus
I know.
overall.
And so I just ask. That's what people are used to. People just ask. They just know that housing comes up. The playgrounds, the parks. The ambulances, things like that. It's public safety. You'll hear me ask. You'll hear me ask about everything, every topic. But as a Latina, it's very lonely. Very lonely.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of Latinas and Latinos interested. And a lot of it is that they don't ask for help. And, there's a lot of pride there. But I think that the younger generations are starting to be more interested because their kids or their families have people in their families who have disabilities, and developmental and physical ones. So I think that's the other topic, is that people are starting to realize disability issues affects everybody. It doesn't discriminate. There's no discrimination. There's the biggest marginalized community, and that's really what it's coming down to. But it's extremely lonely for me, because I love having people, but in a rural community like mine that's small, it's hard to find people. And with the political climate, it can be scary, and people don't want to speak up too. Even though I'm a U.S. citizen, that doesn't mean I'm safe. So people are too scared.
No, but I'm glad you're putting yourself out there, because honestly, it takes a lot of guts to be doing what you're doing.
I have to.
So I can just imagine. Yeah, and I could just imagine the pressure you go on the daily. You're like, no, I got to do this. I got to, and that's why I feel like you it's just amazing.
It's exhausting, but the thing is, the kids need it. The babies need it. When it comes to the end, I want to be able to make change so that those children have better chances, have better laws, have better opportunities, more opportunities than I did as a child. I was born in 1976. You didn't know about medical stuff. You didn't have the computer. You didn't have cell phones. You had the library, and you had people telling my parents, well, your daughter's the most severe. And mom went to the library and started researching. And that's all they had, and those kids, I worry about them. It scares me. The problems that we're leaving behind, the things that they're gonna have to deal with, they deserve more. They don't deserve to question.
Yeah, no, and it's great what you're doing for the next generation, because we have to, I feel like, as as people in positions where we have to put ourselves up for the next generation, to be able to give them a better life, to give them better ways of life than we even had.
And leadership. We need leadership.
Yeah.
We need leadership so that when they get older and they see activists or leaders, especially Latinos and Latinas, who do they have? Who do they have? They have me in this county, but that I shouldn't be the only one. There should be more. and finding those people is what's difficult.
Yeah, no, and it doesn't help what the way our community is in terms of disabilities and just not wanting to ask for help. So
Mm,
guys, like we need to ask for help
yeah.
if we are suffering a disability or we know somebody else is suffering a disability, we need to
Mm-hmm.
stand up and help them, you
Right.
know, put their voices in the table. Like I feel like
Yes.
that's the most important thing too.
Well, and
Yeah.
the other frustrating thing is, the big cities, like King County or
Yeah.
Seattle have all those orgs. Like my county, we're the smallest. We don't get that type of help. And that's no disrespect to King County or Seattle or, any other
Yeah.
place. But when you're this rural county and you're small, you don't get that
Yeah.
type of awareness and those, people interested.
Yeah.
So, that's the other problem is that I'm just a rural community and, there's probably less than 100,000, 150,000 in my community, in my county, something like that.
Mhm.
So we're not really big.
But I'm glad you're putting yourself out there to represent that small county.
Thank
And I
you.
feel like even
Yes.
yeah, our Latinas in rural communities, y'all gotta step up too. Y'all
Ex-
see that you can make a change.
I know. And it's hard at first, but I'll take him along for the ride. You want to come do it
Mm,
with me? We'll do it together. I'll
yeah,
take I'll introduce them to Disability Rights Washington, and they've been a blessing. They've been a blessing because
yeah,
they are interested, but Skagit doesn't call them people, so they don't know how to help my county. If the
yeah,
people aren't calling, what do you do? So I said, we need to have a community meeting with you guys. That's what needs to
yeah,
happen. And so they agreed. So we're going to have a big community meeting to introduce them to people and so that they can get their information. And so it goes both ways. So the people here can get their information and DRW can get their information and start those
yeah,
relationships, start those communications, because that's what's going to get the attention is all
yeah.
that.
So one thing I'm curious about is, what does activism look like for you, like on a daily basis? Not just the legislative days,
Yeah.
but for like everyday work of like showing up. How does that look like?
Meetings, meetings, community meetings, showing up to every meeting that you can think of, because I've been going to every city council meeting. The senior center is a big discussion right now because we don't have enough money in the county, so we're trying to figure out what they're gonna do with the senior centers because we have a short budget this year. We've got we don't have enough money. So what are we gonna do? How are we gonna get the funds for that to keep that going? Because a lot of people with disabilities use the senior center. So I'm learning about what's going on here and what needs to be focused on so that I can go back to Disability Rights Washington and say, this is what's going on in Skagit. How can we help? And if not,
Yeah,
then, who would I look to for support?
yeah,
Because I don't want to lose the senior center. That would
yeah,
be a heartbreak. And, just the mayor, I asked the mayor, I teased him and I said, are you used to me showing up to the meetings? He's like, I expect you at every meeting. I said, do you really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I expect you to be there because he's like, I know you'll show up. So every day, it's almost every day, weekly. Even the work meetings, when they're not city council meetings, they have work group meetings. So they all meet together, city council meets together and it'll be some committee, whatever committee, and then they'll go
yeah,
over what they're working on in that committee. So it's just a lot of meetings and a lot of talking to people, and seeing what I can do, and
yeah,
just so that people can see me more
yeah,
often, that to hear that I'm a Latina and that I am an activist and that I am here, and that we need to I need to be more, people need to be more aware of me than I have been.
mhm,
Um, and this podcast is really helping me with that. And then the
yeah,
article with the Cascadia Daily News has
yeah,
been a blessing. So it's really helped. It's really helped to get the word out and know that there is actually an activist here. So that's what that looks like
Yeah, no, and
weekly, almost.
I love that. I love that. It sounds like so crazy to be honest,
It
like
is.
meetings.
Yes, because that's the only way I know what's going on in the county. Because if
Yeah.
the disability community is not talking, then I
Yeah.
have to go to these meetings to see what's going on. Like we just passed a levy for public safety. And I said, well, if you're going to talk about parks and recs, you're going to need to look at how these people are going to be able to be accessible to the parks. I said, there's
Yeah. Yeah.
wheelchairs. I said, and those uh, playgrounds, most of them have gravel. So how is
Yeah.
somebody in a wheelchair supposed to be able to get down there, especially if they have a child? And I said, and
Yeah.
especially if those play sets or playgrounds are not disability accessible, then what? Well, I said, and then you got to also think about, well, if somebody hurts themselves, how is the fire department, how is the police going to get to that
Yeah.
person? So they're looking into it. They're researching it, seeing what they can do to help with this. So I put that on the table too. So that's been a discussion of what is going on in the community, and just really, I'm having to talk to every person in the county about disability issues because that's the only way I can do it. And they're like, "Wow," and I'm like, "Whoa!" I'm like, "You really okay?" Didn't know that, but what can I do? But I just got to keep talking. Eventually, I'm gonna lose
Yeah.
my voice, but yeah, that's what every day looks like.
Yeah, no, and I love that. And also, you're asking the questions that sometimes able-bodied people aren't even thinking about, and they kind of
Right,
gloss over it. But I'm here like,
right,
you need to consider all aspects of who's going to have access to this. So I'm
right.
glad you're bringing up these questions, and they're having to research and do the
Yeah,
work because that should
yes,
have done the work in the beginning. So
exactly, and especially special ed. We go,
yeah,
like every county or every city has a budget, school budget. And
yeah,
so who are they letting go because they don't have enough money for
yeah,
special ed or for teachers, or what are they going to cut this year, or what are they going to do next year? And that's the other issue is, the funds are being cut. So who are the first people to go? So that's the other hard part. So I'm trying to figure that one out too. So that's my next task.
and I'm curious also, like, to look at the opposite side. So when legislative session does happen, you show up to speak with lawmakers. So what does that look like, and how do you prepare to walk into those rooms?
I don't prepare. That's the trick. I don't prepare. I
Mm.
have the bill that I'm looking at.
Mhm.
So 1541, the Nothing About Us
Mhm.
Without Us Act.
Yeah.
DRW gave us one pagers. They said this,
Mm.
this, this, and that. So I went to a legislative day. It was a Latino legislative day, um, and I took them. I took them with me, and I went to these legislators' office because I knew
Yeah.
that it was session, so they weren't going to get to it. And so
Mhm.
I met with my legislators. I went down to the floor. I said told the guy at the door, I said, I need to speak with my representatives. And he said, you need to write a note. I was like, oh my gosh. So I wrote a note and I put the paper in there. They all came out and spoke to me. And so they were all learning. So I never prepare because when I prepare, I get too nervous. And then
Yeah.
it's not as natural. Because then I feel
Mhm.
like I'm reading something and they're
Yeah.
just hearing what I'm saying and what's written on the paper. But my
Mhm.
legislators know I never stop talking, so they kind of just put me on a little bit of a time limit. But I'm really close to my legislators up here. And so I'm just starting to talk to also to my Congress people, my congressmen
Mhm.
over in DC. So I'm starting to speak with them.
Yeah, and you've talked about how hard it is to find other disabled people in rural areas and who are willing to speak up, because that really is sometimes the big issue you're encountering here. And so, how do you keep going? As you mentioned, it feels lonely doing that. Like,
It does,
how do you
but
keep motivating yourself to keep going?
because my abuelito told me from I was a preteen, and I never forgot this. I did not care about activism. I didn't. I was just wanting to be a kid, right? You're just running
Yeah.
around being with your cousins. And he told me, Mija, you're going to be an activist. And I said, I am not going to be an activist. I am not going to be an activist of farm workers, right? I was like, I am not going to do that. No. And he said, no, Mija, you're going to be an activist for the people who can't speak for themselves. And I said, well, what do you mean, Walito? What do you mean? He goes, Mija, you have a disability. You're going to be an activist for those who cannot communicate, those who cannot go places. You are going to speak for them, and you're going to be saying things that they can't. And I said, no, I am not going to be an activist. I am not. And so he died in 94, and here I am, an activist. So that was really what it comes from. And then my mom, too, she told me from the time you were born, you were an activist. I was like, what? What do you mean? What? She goes, because you fought so many battles and you overcame so many that even if you didn't know you were an activist, you were as a little girl. It just wasn't something that, we brought awareness to. And then when I got older, then I needed to find an organization. We couldn't find one. And then mom was doing research for stem cell research. She couldn't find anything. And then my mom died. Then Disability Rights Washington came around. And that's really where it took off. But mom and Abuelito, they really did it. Abuelito always told me, like, that all of my cousins are special. We all have our unique areas and specialties, careers. But he said, Mija, you're going to be the activist. You're going to be it. And I said, And I took off running. I took off running to go play with my cousins. That's all I was worried about. And then it just started looking like it more and more. And then I kept asking mom more and more questions. She's like, we need to find you an organization. We need somebody that you can ask all these questions to. So that's really what it comes from is mom and my abuelito, and I always remember when I get frustrated, I think of my abuelito and what he said.
Yeah.
That will never go away. So when things get frustrating, that's when I think of him, and I think of my mom. And I always hear this once in a while of, don't give up, Mija. Don't give up. Don't walk away. You'll get there.
Yeah.
Because I don't get paid. I don't get paid for the work. And so I hear every once in a while, don't give up. Keep going. Oh, you're like, oh my gosh. So here we go again. I keep doing it.
Yeah.
I just got to. I've got to. But that's my
No,
calling.
and I'm glad they inspired you. I'm glad that you continue to carry their memory with you and just have that inspiration. Like, let me keep doing what I'm doing. They wanted me to do this. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing.
And eventually it'll all pay off, with that bill 1541 getting passed. Me going to the DNC convention for Kamala Harris. I beat out 70 other women for that position, and I went on the disability ticket. Is how I got to be able to go. And then I'm the first Latina from this area that's got to go to a DNC convention. And my dad had told me, Mija, he goes, I'm glad you're going. He said, because these are things your mom and I never thought of doing. They weren't,
Yeah.
they weren't possible. They were, farm workers, in the campos, and going to work, and going to school. Um, you know, that was the focus. It wasn't anything
Yeah.
about going to DNC. And so he told me, you fulfilled a lot of people's dreams. And when they look to a Latino in this area that has gone to a DNC convention, you can say that you are the one. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what was inspiring to me. So then I haven't told anybody what he does because he gets really shy. He could like I'll tell people, oh, Dad said that. I didn't
It's like, whoa.
know. he's he's like, I didn't say that. He's just really shy, is what it is. So that's what it
Yeah.
was. That's primarily what the issue is with my dad. He supports me in everything I do. So he's just like, what are we doing today? Um, so that's really what it comes from.
I'm wondering also a little bit more about the DNC experience. Like, so in that experience, like, what did you learn about, representation and power in that, especially
Oh
that big
my,
setting?
I walked into that convention, right? There was
Yeah.
this big TV, a big square, and tears just started coming down my eyes. And it was amazing because little old me from Skagit, who has a disability, got to go, right? And it
Yeah.
was this big world of like, wow, there is all these organizations, there's all these groups, media. I have never seen so much media up close, and I have never seen Secret Service before, and I was just like, oh my goodness. So there was a lot of interviews, a lot of groups with Latinos discussing politics and the bills and that were going on, and immigration.
Yeah.
Immigration. I tested those people, and I said, because you guys don't want to deal with the immigration. I said, this is a really hard topic. And I said,
Yeah.
but we need you guys to speak up more often. We need you guys. We need to get something passed, and we need to get those groups. But just using my voice just says, even just for that, and then I would speak about the disability issues and representation. I said, where are you guys? What are you guys doing? Uh,
Yeah.
you know, uh, where who's coming out? What are you doing? Let me know. And I met Eva Longoria there,
Hey.
and I was like, wow. But I was a total eye opener, and I had
Yeah.
never seen that. I have never seen that before. I met Cory Booker by accident, and I was
Oh.
like, wow. I was like, I have never seen anybody, a politician like that, up close before. I got a hug, and I was like, I never got that before. So it was a real eye opener and experience, and it was overwhelming because people like me just don't go. Really don't.
Yeah.
People like me, we don't get these chances, especially having a disability and being part of a rural community. A lot of people focus on the bigger counties, rural communities, than they do a small one. You know, um,
Yeah.
but I have gotten myself known in the Democrat Party also, really fighting for issues, bringing up disability when it comes up, and being active, and that's why I've been able to build myself up. Is partly because of them, but more individually by myself. So
Mm.
that's they've just been a good support system. But when I told them that I really want to go to the DNC, um, they all were excited. They were happy, and they supported me in whatever way they could. So it was pretty amazing, but it was still very lonely. Um,
Yeah.
because even though I was Latina, or that I'm Latina, they had a quota. So for a certain amount of Latinos and Latinas could come for that to fill the Latinos. But I fit into the disability community better because that's where I had more of a chance to go to the DNC.
Yeah. No, but I'm glad you were able to go and be able to get that experience. And, now that I'm thinking about, like, for someone listening, who has a disability and wants to get involved, but doesn't know where to start, what would you tell them? Like, how do you find your people and your leaders?
I would go to Disability Rights Washingtons in every state. So you can find them. Just look them up, and then you'll find the closest one that you can speak to, and go from there. But I would also say, going to, if I have a Latino teacher, or counselor, go to them and say, I'm interested in disability issues. Where do I go? What do I do? And then, then you have to look statewide if there isn't anything in your county or city. And that's where Disability Rights Washington comes in. And then, there's places like vocational services that do take students who are still in high school or about ready to graduate and take them from the school district and put them in their program, and then they teach them how to live independently. So sometimes they have resources too. But when it comes to disability issues, you really gotta dig because they're not out there. They don't have. They're not there. They're just. And now it's finally coming to the light to just really look at the issue.
Yeah. Rocio, is there anything that we missed that you want to discuss about?
Don't give up. Stay with it. Know that there are people. There's people who are watching them, and don't give up because there could be somebody else's inspiration. And doing your research, talking, going to city council, go to school board meetings, talk to your mayor, schedule meetings with your city council, schedule meetings with the school board. Say what's going on, what's student special education, what's going on. Asking them for what bills are in the legislature that are going through that they could support. And then talking. Don't be shy. Even if you just stuttered the whole thing, if you just, when I first started, I sweated, I started stuttering. You just go get it out whichever way you can. Because that's what they want. They want it organic. They don't want it prepared because the legislators want to know this is really from them and not something written. So you just gotta talk, and you gotta housing meetings, every type of meeting. You gotta ask. You gotta ask the question because if you don't ask the question, they're not gonna know. And even if they do know, they need to have that question be asked, so that one, they are being told. Two, somebody can hold them accountable. If they're not doing the work, then you can continue to talk to them and making phone calls, sending emails, showing up to, like Olympia here, going to your legislators, writing to your congressmen, mine, Rick Larson, Patty Murray, Susan Delbene, Susan Maria Cantwell, talk to them, send them emails. For my area, it's the 40th LD. Whatever LD they represent, put it in their subject line because those are the priority they take from their people, from their constituencies. So just talk and just take a deep breath. Take a deep breath when you need to. Take that time to rest. Enjoy it. Travel. Anything free, go. Just do it, because that's how you learn. That's how you make connections. That's how you meet people in your communities. That's how you do it. And then you're able to all just get together, start working. You have an idea for a bill. Take it to like Disability Rights Washington. Say, I want to be involved. How do I get involved? What do I have to do? This is an idea. Can you help me with it? And it may take, don't expect the bill to be passed the first session, because that's not how it works. Bills, 1541 took 4 years. 4 years. That's a lot, but it's worth it in the end, because those bills need to be passed. It needs to be, the state, our legislators, need to be held accountable. Where are we at? But just talking, find somebody that can be your voice if that's what is needed. But make sure that you have a supportive system, and reach out to your counselors if you're in school, and then sometimes the community colleges, universities, they have people, and then just keep going down. And sometimes looking for your legislators, people have disabilities. People may not have physical ones, but they have developmental ones or intellectual ones. Those are the people you want to reach out to, even if they're not your representatives. They might be able to help in some way. So that's what I would tell people, is just don't give up. Talk, ask questions, because the more questions you ask, you'll get those answers, because people are going to be forced to give you those answers.
Yeah.
So that's what I would tell people. Don't give up. Just don't give up, and talk and repeat whatever they want to say. If they have to say, I need a place to study, I need a location where it's not so bright, you keep talking about that till they listen, until they get it, until they say, okay, this is what you mean. And that's really how I learned, is just asking questions and talking. Don't, if you don't talk, you're never gonna be, they're never gonna know. That then they need to hear from the community. They need to hear from people who have developmental and physical disabilities, because it's not easy. Living with one is not easy. It's not. And even I get exhausted. And so working from home is sometimes the best thing. But I know that being out in front and center and people seeing me is what they need also, so that they can put a face to the activism or the issue for disability issues. So that's what I would tell people. That's what I ask.
Yeah, no, and I love that too. And that's great advice, especially for anybody looking to get into advocacy. Like, start asking questions.
Yeah.
And also, I want to know more, Rocio, like, what are you looking future projects, or what are you looking into your future after this interview?
Well, I'm going to start meeting with Disability Rights Washington again, and to see what's going on. I'm going to be scheduling a meeting with them over in my county to come to meet the community, to get the word out, to see how they can help. People have asked me, why did it take so long? But the problem with that is that it's not that it took too long, but if the people in the community are not reaching out to them, and a lot of it is the language barrier. That's the other thing, is the language barrier. But they have those people to hire and to translate and to make those connections, And then I'm going to Washington, D.C., and there's a disability policy seminar, and it's a 2-day seminar. And I'm going to be meeting, or there's probably going to be I don't know, a couple 100,000, or 2,000, 3,000 people there, meeting with different national disability organizations. And the one that's going to be there is United Cerebral Palsy. And so I want to attend their session and see what they say. And I want to find out if they have any knowledge of cures for cerebral palsy, because it's tiring to have cerebral palsy. But so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm fundraising for that right now. So I'm close to meeting my goal. And then I'm going to come back and see what I can learn, or what I want to learn over there and bring back to being a better activist and being a better advocate, and see what I can do. So right now, that's really the focus. And still going to city council, still attending county commissioners, and just talking and being that voice and being the example for the kids, because they need to see us too. They need to know that the Latinos have somebody that has been fighting for them, and so that's what is coming up, and I'm really excited to get back with everybody and see what's gonna go happen.
Okay. And I love that for you, and I'm so excited for that. And also for our final question, our founder Angelica Casares loves this question, always love to include here near the end of an interview, is, do you consider yourself a leader? Why or why not?
I'm starting to see myself as a leader. I've always just seen myself as Rocío López, the one who speaks up. I'm now beginning to see myself as an activist. It's been hard to get to that point, but I'm recognizing myself as an advocate. I've been what has helped for me in realizing that is the podcast, for instance, the article, because it's brought awareness, and so it's brought awareness not just to me but the issue. So for me, it's like recognition, acknowledgement. She is a leader, because like I said, as a kid, I didn't see myself as an advocate. I mean, you're just a kid. You're worrying about running around and forgetting you have a disability. We're not worried about that. But once I started getting involved with Disability Rights Washington, that's when I really began to see myself as a leader. And then the more I travel with the DNC, that was helpful. And I'm just getting myself out there, finally speaking. But yeah, I do see myself a leader, but it's I'm shy about it, because I'm like, I really am a leader, you know that, right? And so people, the other thing is, people are calling me an advocate. People are calling me an advocate, activist. That's the difference too, is that people are recognizing me as that, instead of me always telling people, yeah, I am a leader. No, I'm being recognized and acknowledged as a leader. And that's a huge difference, is to have that recognition and acknowledgement. But yeah, I see myself as a leader. I see myself as becoming a powerhouse, getting more people involved. But I also see myself handing the baton off to somebody else. You're the next leader. I'll be here for you, but you take the reign, you take the leadership, and you learn, and then you bring more people involved. So I do see myself at some point stepping back and leading and teaching other people what it means to be a leader, and then continuing on, because I don't want to hog the spotlight forever. There's children that are going to come up. There's teenagers. There's young adults. There's even people my age who want to learn. I'll teach you what I know, and then go from there. So yeah, I do. I kind of like calling myself a leader now. It's pretty cool. But it's interesting to see where this leadership role is going to take me. And I sometimes blush when I say that I'm a leader, because it's taken a long time taken a long, long time just to get here. And, Bolito and my mom would be jumping for joy, and they would be so excited for what's to come. But yeah, I can acknowledge, yeah, I am a leader. I'm definitely a leader. So I just got to find the people, or the people need to come find me so I can teach them how to be leaders, and how I can just take them along with the journey with me so that they know what to do. So yeah, I am. I am. I'm definitely a leader.
I love that, Rocio, and I'm so happy you consider yourself a leader because I know how difficult it would be to admit yourself, like, whoa, I'm a leader now. And I'm so
Yes.
excited to see, I'm so excited to see how your leadership role progresses too after
Yes.
this interview, because I'm sure you're going to keep growing more and more as a leader and teach other people how to be leaders as
Yeah.
well.
Well, and they've come up with
Yeah.
an idea of a scholarship for people with disabilities, but I want to have the requirements of a lived experience and
Mhm.
not so much of a GPA of a bachelor's or a master's or associates or a certificate or 5 years office experience. I want
Yeah.
people, Latinos, to have that opportunity who have disabilities, to be able to have a better way of getting education or having those funds, accessing those funds to go to school, because everything is so based on GPA, degrees, certificates, years in office. I have a PhD in lived experiences for disability issues. But is there a job
Yeah.
for me? No, because I don't have
Mhm.
a bachelor's. I don't have a
Yeah.
master's. And I don't have 5 years, 3 years, 2 years in experience in something. So,
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure out ways. That's my new task. Is how do I get that, or how do people understand that lived experiences is what a lot of people need to be qualified for positions.
Mhm.
And it's starting to change in Washington State. So that's my
Yeah.
new task, is trying to get businesses, and the governments, the council, the city council, hiring activists, and realizing that people who have disabilities want to work, um,
Yeah.
but those qualifications of needing an education is what's keeping a lot of us from qualifying for those jobs. So just trying to
Yeah.
get that across and working on that. So that's my new task.
Yay! And Rocio, thank you for having this conversation with me. And before we go, where can our listeners find you to see
Um,
where your journey's going?
I am on Facebook. So, but I also people can, the easiest way for me is with my email. So it's Rocio, ROCIOL
Mhm.
836 @gmail.com, and then just put like a subject line podcast or Latino, just something so that I know that this is where it's coming from, and
Yeah.
so I can answer them right away, because I want to put the disability community, priority. So
Yeah.
they can reach me through my email. That's the quickest way to do that right now for me. And then we can. I'm kind of cautious with people too, just because of the
Yeah.
political world right now, and I want to make sure
Mhm.
that that these really are the people that I want to
Yeah.
give my personal information out to.
Mhm.
But they can reach me through my email. That's the easiest way to do it.
Awesome. Everybody, if you want to reach out, you're wanting to get involved in disability rights, reach out to Rocio and she can guide you to help you start your journey. Thank you so much, Rocio, for having this conversation with me. It's such important, the disability rights, to be
Yes.
put out there.
Thank you.
And so thank you for this. Mhm.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate
um,
it.
yeah. And amigas, we'll see you hasta la próxima. Bye, amigas.